Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we have an article that's been making the rounds for a few days. It's called Men, Where Have You Gone? Please Come Back. It's in the modern love section of the New York Times. So many men have retreated from intimacy, hiding behind firewalls, filters, and curated personas, dabbling and scrolling. We miss you. Now, this sort of thing has come up earlier than I thought it would. I thought we were still in the we don't need the men era, but we're starting to get articles like this, and even the depiction. Look at the depiction of the men, right? We got the woman standing up here. All of them are on their phones beneath in the cube over here. This is written by Rachel Drucker. May 17th. So it starts off with this really lengthy narrative. I'm not going to go into that. I'll get to this place here. She's describing a restaurant that she's at. And the scene was beautiful, low lights, shared plates, shoulders angled in, the kind of evening people wait for all winter. Still, I find myself watching the crowd as I moved past us, women walking in pairs or alone, dressed with care. At table after table at nearby restaurants, there was a notable absence of men, at least of men seated in what looked like dates. So they're finally noticing the problem that's been going on for 20 years. Congratulations. Troy and I have known each other for almost 20 years. We met at Playboy, of all places. That's a little sus. Don't meet women at Playboy magazine. Back when we were both learning how desire gets packaged, sold, and sometimes misunderstood. We stayed close friends, bonded not just by our opinions, but the effort it took to stay in someone's life. That night we still made the effort. Still, what I saw unfolding around us was like something else entirely, a collective shift I couldn't unsee. It started to become clear the previous April, when a man who had been pursuing me canceled a dinner at the last minute. There was a scheduling mix-up with his son's game. I understood. I'm a hockey mom, I get it. Still, I went. I wore what I have worn anyways. I took the table I ordered well, and I watched the room. Only 2 tables nearby seemed to hold actual dates. The rest were groups of women or women alone, each one occupying her space with quiet confidence, no shrinking, no waiting, no apologizing. So as we get the more atomization of people, as we get women deciding that they don't need men in America and in the West, this is just a natural consequence. And it's funny, these people are finally catching on to what has been trending for quite a long time now. That night marked something, not a heartbreak, but an unveiling. A sense of what I'd been experiencing wasn't just personal misalignment, it was something broader, cultural, a slow vanishing of presence. I've spent over a decade behind the curtain of digital. Okay, so she talks about her time at Playboy. We knew what worked. We know how to frame a face, a gesture, a moment of implication, just enough to ignite fantasy and open a wallet. I came to understand in exact terms what cues tempt the average 18 to 36-year-old man, what drew him in, what kept him coming. It wasn't intimacy, it was mutuality. It was access to simulation, clean, fast, and frictionless. I think the irony of this is the fact that she works at a place that has been pushing degeneracy, making things worse between the sexes, and is engineered. I mean, there's even reports of how Playboy and magazines like this were influenced by the State Department of the United States back in the 1960s and 70s. Hugh Hefner worked closely with the CIA to push degeneracy. So pushing this degeneracy to take men out of the dating market, and then realizing after pushing degeneracy and making these things worse, where have all the men gone after we fed them all the fake simulated crap? It's very ironic when these people figure it out. In that world, there's no need for conversation. So it's describing in the simulation world, how there's no need for, real life interaction. They weren't sitting across, not with violence or resistance, but with indifference. They weren't sitting across from someone on Saturday night trying to connect. They were scrolling, dabbling, disappearing behind firewalls, filters, and curated personas. And while they disappeared, women continued to gather, to tend, to notice who wasn't arriving, and to show up anyways. I'm 54. I've been dating since the mid-'80s. Been married, been a mother, gotten divorced, had many relationships, long and short. I remember when part of the male culture involved showing up with a woman to signal something: status, success, desirability. Women were once signifiers of value, even to other men. It wasn't always healthy, but it meant that men had to show up and put in some effort. So even missing some of the old world, it seems, in that, statement there. It wasn't healthy, but like secretly, we really like it and want to return to that. The dynamic has quietly collapsed. We moved into an era where many men no longer seek women to impress other men or to connect across difference. They perform elsewhere alone. They've filtered us out. Well, women did the filtering first, if I might add. Everyone's familiar with the attractiveness scales of what women find men attractive and what percentage. Also, I have this graph here, young men driving the decline in sex. I'm not saying that sex is necessarily an indicator of a healthy society, but sex and dating and interactions between the genders are often corollaries. So the share of women between ages 18 and 30 reporting no sex in the past year, you can see with women, it's gone up since 1989, maybe 4 or 5%, kind of oscillating there. Not really significant. But for men, it's gone from 16%. We actually had a point where, it was less. There's even points here where men were getting more sex than women, which is interesting. But it seems here it's gone from about 16% up to 28%. And this ends in 2018. It's even higher now. I think it's in the high 30s now. So it's just exploded since the big the big shutdown. So, obviously there's something that happened here. And you can see the big explosion around around 2010 here. What launched in 2010? Oh, right. Degenerate dating apps is what launched in 2010, is what came across. So I recently experienced a flicker possibility with James. We met on Riot, the dating app again. There was something mutual from the start, blah, 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 blah. There was just enough spark to wonder what might unfold, enough curiosity to imagine a doorway, but he didn't step through it. Not with the plan, not with the presence. He hovered, flirting, retreating, offering warmth, but no direction. Sexual tension and spark aren't reason enough to sit still and hope there's substance behind the shimmer. So I named what I felt. I texted him clearly with care, no simply to declare attraction, but to extend a real invitation to explore what was possible. I didn't chase, I invited, leaving the door open. If you ever wanted to cross the threshold, not just to take, but to meet, I was willing. I still do. He never replied. He still follows my Instagram stories, one of those small gestures of passive engagement that so many of us now mistake for closeness. It looks like interest. It feels like silence. So you spend 20, 30 years demasculating men, telling them it's bad to be assertive and have all these toxic masculine traits. And then when they don't display masculinity in a dating setting, all of a sudden women freak out because deep down they want masculine men, but outwardly they don't want to say that. And so turns out when you untrain men for 30 years to not do these things and then they don't do them, it shouldn't be a shock when that happens. There are thousands of Jameses. I've known dozens. The arc varies, but the undertow is familiar. What I won't entertain is directionless orbiting. Yeah, women hate this, right? They don't want men beating around the bush like this, but this is what you've created. A lot of men are like this now. There was a time not so long ago when even a one-night stand might end with tangled lips and shit. Okay, so describes all that. This idea that vulnerability is a threat instead of an invitation has created a culture of hesitation, of men circling intimacy but never entering it. And the result is thousands of tiny silos. Everyone performing closeness, but no one making a move that binds. Isolation, loneliness, a hunger for contact that has nowhere to land. Well, when you isolate everybody in the West, right, with electronics, with phones, with degeneracy, with different options, with women's unreasonable standards, with men, subperforming in terms of their masculinity, but also through societal measures, taking that from them, making them more hesitant to talk to women because of Me Too stuff that happened in the late 2010s, the threat that they're going to be filmed if something goes wrong with the women in public. A lot of men have just gone, you know what, the juice ain't worth the squeeze in America. Maybe we're between paradigms, mourning what's fallen, not yet fluent in what comes next. The infrastructure of intimacy, slowness, curiosity, accountability have been eroded by haste, convenience, and a kind of sanctioned emotional retreat. It's not about blaming men, it's about noticing the imbalance, about grieving. Well, that's a first, right? I mean, everyone's seen that article where it's like the Ukraine war has caused, a shortage of men in Ukrainian life. Women suffer, right? So everyone's seen those articles where it's like something bad's happening to men. There was another article that came out 6 months ago. It was men aren't socializing, women suffer, right? So it's always from the perspective there, but it looks like she's trying not to blame men in this case. It's not about noticing the imbalance, about grieving what's not meeting us, and about refusing to dress it up as personal failure when it's actually a collective reality. So here's what I'll say. You are missed, not just by me, but by the world you once helped shape. So a little too late at this point. It's like so many guys have checked out. So many guys are not sure what to do in a state of quiet desperation. We're asking for presence, for courage, for breath and eye contact, ability to say, I'm here. I don't know how to do this perfectly, but I want to try. So begging for a return of patriarchy is essentially what that is. Come back, not with flowers or fireworks, but with willingness, with your whole beautiful and perfect heart. We're still here. We haven't stopped hoping. As for me, I'll keep showing up. So what's interesting is I wonder how many more articles like this we're going to get over the next 4 or 5 years as women realize that the modern world runs on men performing tasks like building things, like running the sewers, running the power plants, engineering, things that keep society moving. And when are they finally going to realize that that's the case and there's roles for both of the sexes? And beating masculinity out of men for 40, 15 years, telling them it's toxic to be upfront, telling them it's toxic to be, assertive, turns out that's going to have an impact. And a lot of men are going to completely give up on dating in the US. And that's why I recommend at this stage of what it's like in the West, that men should look overseas for their dating, where they're appreciated, where they can be masculine, where they can be upfront, where they can be assertive, and that actually connects with women. And they actually do really enjoy it, and you are valued more than the dating market in the West. So let me know your thoughts down below on this article, which I'll link in the description, and just the overall dating scene in the West. Have you looked into dating overseas? I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button and like the video. And anyways, I'll see you guys next time.